Hello, this is Deborah Matthews, Vicar of St Michael's Verwood and All Saints Three-Legged Cross. And here is my thought for the week. Over the last few weeks, we have had cause to think about sharing food together, whether it be wedding feasts, shared suppers, or eat out to help out. We have been taking advantage of sharing food and hospitality whilst we can. And there have already been restrictions on numbers, and we can see that there are likely to be more on the way. This week in church, we are celebrating harvest and giving thanks for the food that we all enjoy. This year, all of our harvest donations are going to the Trussell Trust Food Bank. We give thanks for the harvest, remembering that food, whether it is shared in restaurants with friends, at a celebration feast, or delivered from the food bank, it is a basic necessity for each one of us. Harvest festivals are usually a time of sharing in a feast with foods from the crops of the local area. This year we're not collecting any perishable foods because of difficulties in safely handling and transporting them, and of course sadly we're not having our usual harvest supper. But we can nevertheless be thankful for the food that we have and the ability for most of us to donate food to food banks so that no one goes hungry. But of course we miss sitting at table with friends, and we are concerned about further restrictions going forward, as our celebration feasts are for now severely curtailed. Well, one of the parables in the Bible from St Matthew's Gospel talks about a feast that no one could be bothered to go to. The king called a wedding feast for his son, but everyone that was invited wasn't interested. They all had something better to do. The king gave them another chance, telling them that the best food was ready and waiting for them, but they ignored him, too busy with their own plans. And so the king sent out his troops, saying that the invited guests were unworthy of the invitation, so they were to invite everyone they met to the feast, whoever they were, of good or bad character and reputation. Everyone was to be invited. But when the king came into the feast, he saw that there was a man without a wedding robe there. So he asked him why he was improperly dressed. And the man didn't answer. So the king threw him out of the feast. On face value, this is a tricky parable, but when we look deeper into it, we can draw out an explanation. The king is, of course, God, and the bridegroom is Jesus, the Son. And many people are not interested in taking up the invitation to God's kingdom, but it is open to everyone. It doesn't matter who we are or what we have done in the past. So surely not wearing the right clothing shouldn't mean we get chucked out of the heavenly feast. I don't know whether you remember the poem The Brown Boots, described by Weston and Lee in their famous monologue as unsuitable funeral attire. And it turned out actually to be the way that Jim was welcomed into heaven, because he had given his black boots away to someone who didn't have any boots at all. So I'm sure Jesus didn't mean that wearing the wrong clothes was a barrier to the heavenly banquet. I suggest that this parable has nothing to do with the outward appearance of the guest, but it points to his lack of gratitude at being invited. He does not want to be at this party. He doesn't appreciate the invitation, and he's not really prepared to receive it. He's just turned up with the crowd. But when the king questions him about how he got in, he has no word of explanation. His life before God's invitation could be put right. Our lives can always be put right if we seek God's help. But this man did not demonstrate his readiness to be clothed in the wedding garment in preparation for receiving Christ. And so his refusal to put on Christ exposed the guest's choice against God's invitation. So how could he be welcomed to a feast that he didn't want to attend? Well, we may not be able to gather in great numbers for our celebrations today, but when we accept God's invitation, we can be assured of a place at the feast, at his table in heaven. In the meantime, enjoy your dinner, whether it be shared with your group of 6 or if you're on your own. But remember, when you accept God's invitation and receive his generous hospitality, you will never be on your own. God bless you and have a good week.